The Atomic Real Estate Show, bringing you the real estate of real estate. Brought to you by Danny Bennett Productions in partnership with Direct Subs.
This episode is brought to you by Downtown Mechanical. Downtown Mechanical is your one-stop shop for all of your HVAC needs, residential and light commercial. Downtown Mechanical specializes in installation of full units, swap outs, repair, service, rooftop units, mini split systems, heat pumps, whatever you need HVAC-wise. I personally use them on all of my properties. Matt Rispo is the owner. Great guy. I love working with them. They accept credit cards, free estimates, and they offer financing. You can get a hold of them at downtownmechanicalllc.com or by phone 215-617-3768.
Hi, everyone. Ryan Dolan here with Nick Cessna, and we have a generational business owner from our area in Roxborough, Philadelphia, Loreta Montenegro. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Loreta is also a real estate investor, but we're going to hear her story, right? Because, well, one, as she just mentioned off the break, we needed a ratings boost, so we brought on a female investor, but really she's got a wealth of knowledge and experience in real estate investing and running a small business. She owns Paw Prints on Ridge Avenue in Green Lane, it is, I believe, right?
Yep, Ridge and Green.
Yeah, so, familiar obviously to all of us, so thanks for popping on with us and kind of looking forward to hearing more of your story. So Nick and you guys know each other quite well, and you and I have worked together in the past. But so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory. I have been born and raised in Roxborough, still live there. I've opened 2 businesses there, closed one, still have the other. It's been about 15 years with this particular business. We love it. Paw Prints, it's pet grooming. So it is a little bit of a departure from real estate.
Sure.
So people are always wondering how we bridge the gap on those 2 things. But essentially business is business. So, you just really have to figure out what drives you, what your goals are, and how you're going to get there at the end of the day. So for us, my husband and I met when I was very young, and, I didn't really have much of a plan to even step into this world. It was something I was always surrounded by. But how
long have you and Ramon been married now?
Married 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I met him when I was 17. So I'm like 20 now. But yeah, so we've been together total like 23 years. So as we got older, our goals changed, as they do. But, this was one of those things that I was so exposed to that it was so second nature that I didn't ever think of it as like, this is what I should be doing. It was just kind of happening without me realizing it.
Yeah, like when I was going through the list, like who can we have on? And I think I texted you last season when we were doing stuff, and I was like, all right, we need to get more women on the show, right? And like when I'm thinking about a female investor, you're the first person I thought of. I'm like, I got to get Loreta on because number one, you ain't gonna pull no fucking punches. You're gonna say exactly, you ain't afraid to talk about failures. You're not afraid about talk about anything.
Who said I fail?
Yeah, right. and you're super fucking photogenic for the videos, right? So that's also a great thing to have a beautiful woman on here. I just so happen to be lucky enough to be friends with you for many years. Our dads are like
Best
asshole
friends.
buddies together. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was with your dad yesterday.
Yeah, and it's we grew up a little bit different than most people. So like our dads were always doing stuff, like always doing stuff, like still to this day, like they get into shit that they shouldn't be doing, right? If I like there's been a long part of my life where I would see my dad and your dad together and I would just go the other way, right? Because I knew they were up to something and they were gonna.
Oh no, I was like full speed ahead towards it because I know I was going to find out stuff that I wouldn't normally find out because they were just going back and forth with the stories. The wine would be flowing, and those were my favorite dinners when your dad would
I'm more
come
so
over.
talking about like during the day, seeing them two together. I would fucking run because they'd be like, Nikki, get over here. And they'd be like, well, we're going to do this. And they make everything sound so fucking easy, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to knock this fucking building down and we're going to do this. We're going to knock this wall down and we need you to do this. And I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that. Like, no. Like, but everything sounds so easy. Those
and
guys.
so possible.
Because,
so
yes,
imagine,
they're
like,
the best
translate that
salesmen.
into my brain. I don't have engineering experience. I don't have any business talking about construction. Yet here I am. I will walk into a property and be like, we can just take that wall out.
That's your dad.
Yeah.
That's your dad.
And Ramon's like, calm down. Like, no, we're not just going to take that wall down. It could be load bearing. I'm like, we'll put a beam. He's like, oh, you just make everything sound so easy.
That's what your dad does. Your dad makes everything sound so easy.
But it is so easy at the end of the day.
Because his knowledge is outrageous.
Yes, he is a genius.
Your dad and my dad, like, together, like, I see them, like, doing stuff, and I'm like, I want to run. A lot of times I do, and then other times I'm like, I know I'm going to learn so much because they have so much. Like, where are these dudes going? Like, they're all, like, they're dying off because nobody has that amount of knowledge anymore, these older guys.
So is this, like, construction knowledge? Is this real estate knowledge? Is this buying, dude. Selling? It's
cars.
Just everything.
Like, them guys can take apart a car
it's a
and then
different
build the garage
sure.
to take apart the car in.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But, you know, you've been around real estate literally since you came out of the womb because your dad has been buying stuff since he came to the country.
Yes.
You know, he came here from Italy when he was young. Yeah. You know, him and my dad became friends, and, like, he's literally just been buying properties ever since and never stopped. And owned businesses, and, you know, the one big business that your brother runs now, still I think your dad has taken a back seat to that right now. Franco's kind of like the man there
He's
now.
at the helm, yeah.
And, you know, it's just, and even your brother buys real estate. Your siblings buy real estate. It's like, it's so ingrained in your guys' DNA.
I'm just surrounded by a wealth of knowledge, mentors, like, and I guess that's where my cockiness that I'll never fail comes from, because there's just too many people to catch me, which a lot of people don't have that security blanket, but I have no problem saying that is, like, very much the reality of the situation.
I mean,
like,
at one
I
point,
don't put myself in that situation, but
at one point, your dad and your aunt, his sister, had owned almost, like, all of, like, 2 whole blocks of Ridge Avenue. Like, it was like, oh shit, Ralph owns that. Oh shit, like, it was just like,
they still own an entire block.
She sold quite a few of the buildings away, right? Like,
I think so, yeah.
But this is good because so now we have kind of the other side of what we typically have on the show, where a lot of people are lost. They don't know. They don't have mentorship. They didn't grow up in a household with savvy real estate investors, construction people.
Yeah, and you find those people now because their parents are in the booming era. Like, they don't want even their own personal property. Like, let's get rid of, like, investment. Like, they just want to leave their house to their kids, and the kids don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, which you know,
or how to even take it from the parents with tax implications and things of that nature. So as, like, people's gears start turning and they're thinking about their own personal investments, and they're, oh, my parents want to leave me this house. How are we going to do it the right way? There's so many different conversations to have. Like, do you want to be in real estate? Do you want to be an investor? Do you want a rental property? And everybody thinks it sounds like a great idea. And, like, for all of us that are in it, it will be one day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or at least we hope.
When you're in the trenches and you're really going through it, when people ask me, like, oh, should I invest? Oh, that's what you're doing now. I tell people no all the time. Unless you're willing to, like, really search within your soul and, like, this is something, yes, I've always wanted to do this, then absolutely, yeah, go for it. But if you think this is like a get rich quick type thing, that is not this.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people that do that, right? Like, a lot of lenders came in during the boom. A lot of agents came in during the boom. You're starting to see a little shrinkage of that, right? Because rates have been so high for so long.
And how many properties have you walked into where you've seen people just put lipstick on everything?
I mean,
you'll
get him going forever, right?
Oh, yeah, they ran out of money, and then, like, somebody real comes in is like, well, I have to rip all this out. So, and
Band-Aids on bullet wounds.
Oh, it's
and look, it gets people sometimes, right? Like, unfortunately, that's the nature of the ugly side of this business. Like, Nick will do properties on the same block as some guys, and the work will speak for itself, right? Like, you know, the cream will definitely rise to the top. And then you hear these horror stories of, like, agents that sold shittier properties or inferior properties. Yeah, you can get this dude going on for months about this stuff because it sucks, because that's what we do for work. That's what he does for a living, obviously. So it matters when you stamp your name on something. And with you guys, you got your name all over everything. So I love to hear it from, like, a generational business owner, generational real estate investors, because the typical person, myself included, did not grow up in households like that, right? Like, it's more like, hey, you go to college, you figure out if you're a trade guy or if you're going to do something in business, right? But running these businesses, especially out of COVID, is, like, really crazy, right? And you don't see a lot of younger people or people a little younger than us doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. It's shifted off of that. So how have you guys maintained, one, the real estate piece, right, and holding so long, and then the business avenues of it, because it sounds like everybody's in a family business
Yeah.
in some way.
I think it's just ingrained in you.
Well,
Yeah,
in your
she's
DNA.
real cool
It's like
about it.
fucking
That's why
ingrained in
it's
your
like,
DNA.
yeah.
one, you can't have one without the other because yes, you can invest all day long, but whose money are you investing with? So most of the time you're investing with the bank's money. So who's paying the bank? The property to a certain degree, but you got to keep, the wheels on the bus and pay for your household. Like business is business, household is household. Like my businesses run very independently. So, yes, I have real estate, but Paw Prints is what drives the ship of our household.
Sure.
So, we can't have one without the other at this point in the game because, we're extended so far out in one direction. So, my dad knew that, early on, and I watched that growing up. So he was a teacher for the school district of Philadelphia for 28 years.
Oh, wow.
So he had his hours, 9 to 3 every day. He taught auto shop. On the side, he had an auto business. On the side of the auto business, he invested when he could.
And he was hiring kids right out of the program that were good too.
If
like
he
you
could,
graduate,
yeah.
like, and they're
So
good.
I'm
Like,
sure
hey,
if
I
you
got a
talk
job
to,
for you.
1 in 10 like real native Roxborough people, they know who he is
Yeah,
because
of
he
course.
either taught them or that he worked with them.
Everybody knows Spo.
So he's
Everybody.
grabbing free, experience, kind of almost leads there with the people that he's going, teaching and going through trainings with.
Yes, and he was just, the quintessential teacher. You can go see him today and he'll teach you something
You'll
about
yeah,
something.
just the
Could
conversation you have with him. Yeah, sure.
Could be about real estate, cars, or a peach tree. You're
About
going to
life.
learn something.
Like that's a great way to like describe your dad. Like you're gonna learn something no matter. Anytime I encounter him, I learn something. Whether it's about real estate, construction, auto, life, being a man, being a husband, being a father. Like you're gonna learn something from that dude because he's gonna talk to you and you're gonna fucking listen to him too.
Yeah.
Like he just commands like a room.
Yeah.
He
And
walks
that's
in
kind of
commands a
how
room.
he works, right? I mean, you said 28 years, stop at 3, you go right to your other business, right to your other business.
Yeah.
So to you,
he
this is
was
just
leaving,
commonplace. Like,
and he was putting in place certain things before he even arrived at school. Then he'd be teaching, he'd be doing his thing. He'd be bringing his cars to auto shop.
oh, wow.
Having the kids work on them. And
Free
then,
labor, free child labor, huh? That's
well, no,
great.
They all listen. They had to work on something. So then he'd finish the day there, and whether he was going to the auto shop or to a job site, kindergarten for me, my mom would pick me up from the morning program. We'd go bring my dad lunch every day. So like I got to see him at every level.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm just a little girl, watching all this happen, and it was so normal to me.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't untouchable. And I used to say to him, like, can I do this? And he'd be like, yeah, why not?
So hands-on everything you
Can
got.
I be,
yeah.
what can I be when I grow up? Whatever you want. Like, he never said I couldn't do anything. So in my mind, like,
Well,
the
I can do it.
possibilities
I'm
were
doing
endless.
anything,
So
yeah.
I just was never stunted by, like, oh, you should be this or you should be that. Like, it was very much like, whatever you want. You do whatever you
Well,
want.
which is great, right? Because
And I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm
and
40,
we all,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
listen,
what am I going to be when
right?
I grow
Like
up?
people said to your point earlier, you said, why the hell did you start this podcast? It's like, well, it helps my business and, it takes me down different avenues. I meet different people, but we're all trying to figure it out. Well, for 2 reasons. Like if you're just staying put in business, you're going to get smoked in business, right? Like you got to evolve, one. And, that's just not what we're trying to do here. It's like, are you going to sit there and just run your same real estate business and one shot for the rest of your life? Probably not, right? There needs to be ancillary avenues of income that come in. Yeah. No family's really getting, majorities of families are not getting by on 1 or 2 incomes anymore. There's got to be other business avenues, right? And so your small business ownership, your family business ownership led into real estate. And you guys have a different philosophy than a lot of people, right? Like Nick, for the most part, you like to do construction, flip, and move on to the next one. You are more long game, right? You buy, hold on as long as you can, and see where the equity takes it, correct?
Sure. I mean, we're still in the early stages personally with what we're gaining, but just watching family members and, they only sold when either the time was right or to make different moves. So the investment was never really squandered. It's not like we just liquidated this to, go blow it here or go blow it there.
Yeah.
It always had another purpose. So it's like you, as you said, just keep evolving into something else. and they were very fortunate at the times they bought real estate. We're not going to go find a commercial property nowadays for $35,000, $50,000. No. So imagine growing up in that era where that was $1 million to them. But for us, could you imagine buying real estate that cheap?
Well, and that's why nobody really kind of gets into owning small business and things like that. It's just the cost of entry is just insane anymore. To buy the bricks and start the business.
It is relative to the time because they were making
very
little money back then, right?
For sure.
The money they were making
to them, it was still $1 million. So for us,
I was going to say, because for us, even as kids, we're like,
now,
holy crap, they're rich. They're buying buildings, right?
It's just now those buildings that they bought in the 80s are worth so much more than what they bought them for. It's insane.
That's why we have to get smarter at our age now to know tax implications and how that's going to trickle down. Because, yes, they could have made the best decisions in the world, but we could blow it.
You could fumble the ball all day long, yes.
So easily in just paperwork if we don't do things the right way. So
you said it, and you said it from one point of view, like most civilians think, hey, pops or mom have an asset or this family member has an asset. They're just going to die and they're just going to divvy it up and we're all going to get our money. It doesn't simply work that way, right? You got to learn how to obviously keep the asset would be my thought process of it, or how to divvy it up the proper way, right? Because someone else will get their claws into it. And it sounds like your family has instilled in you like, hey, this is my philosophy or this is our philosophy as a family. Buy, hold as long as you can because it's only going to appreciate in value. But now it's up to you. Like I'm sure your dad and that generation didn't know shit about paperwork, tax implications, licensing, but they could build a whole building.
I don't think anybody should ever claim to know all of that because it's ever evolving. And
I love it.
You just have to keep, ahead of the curve and keep learning. I'm forever seeing a new video. Like I know social media can just be so harmful in so many ways, but it's a wealth of knowledge if you're going down the right avenues. So
or it puts you onto a street to go investigate. Yes. That
I'm
way.
forever sending videos to our accountant, like, I heard this, I heard that, is this true? And 9 times out of 10, he's like, yes, it is. I'm like, well, let's apply that however we can that makes sense for our lifestyle, our families, our businesses.
Now, with your parents being in their 70s now, are you guys thinking about, like, hey, Dad, we should maybe start putting everything into a trust, or are you guys investigating that? Okay.
He, took care of those things, with the help of people, years ago. So, there's, I guess the way to say it is like he had a plan for us.
Sure.
If we wanted it, it's there.
Yeah.
So he made responsible choices at the time. So now it's just up to us to figure out like how we're going to continue the legacy or if, somebody wants out, which... when you're
unfortunately, you got to kind of make that decision when it hits ahead, and that's the crazy part of it.
And I'm one of 4. I'm the baby, so it's like all 4 of us have to be,
on the same page.
in it.
Yeah,
so. And that's brutal. Sure. I'm one of 4 as well. So you can live in a 900 square foot row home, and you all look at each other and you're like, how the hell are we all so different in philosophy? We might look alike, we might speak alike, but it's like...
We're raised by the same people.
Oh my God, how is our outlook on this, that, and the other thing? And when it comes to real estate money, unfortunately, it gets wild, right? It gets...
You and your brother are usually always on the same page, though, right? Like you guys have a lot of the same mentality.
But we're not diving too deep. There's 2 other people involved.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like,
absolutely.
And one, if they get unhappy, if they think one certain way, if you're... people get that thought in their head, hey, it's real estate. They're going to take advantage of you. Anything involved with real estate, you're getting over on somebody. It's simply not the case, right? You're trying to help people out. Your father obviously sounds like he was trying to get you guys to the goal line, and you just got to kind of push it in and not drop the ball.
Along with driving his own train, as we all aged, he was very, instrumental in saying, I think this would be smart if you went in this direction. So he would point us, very specifically.
Yeah.
Like with my older sister, you should be a teacher. I've been a teacher, and if you want something else after 3:00, you have an opportunity there. But this is smart. You're gonna have benefits. You're gonna have this. You're gonna have that. And she took the reins in that direction. Funny conversations growing up around the dinner table. Are you gonna be the doctor? Are you gonna be the lawyer? Are you gonna be the teacher? Like he was always just putting those ideas in our heads. My sister's a psychologist. Successful. My brother, he's an entrepreneur. He's got business. He's got real estate. Like, we kind of were set up in a direction that these were our dinner conversations. Like, we didn't talk about sports. We didn't talk about, you know,
You're not
pop
talking
culture.
about all the political commercials during the Phillies game. Your Bob
we
Casey's.
talk politics quite a bit. Let's leave that out of this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not getting in the middle of this one. But he plants little seeds throughout,
Yes.
and you now as a parent, because obviously we love kicking knowledge to parenting. We're learning as we go, but we're doing our best. Yeah. But these little things I implement, like Christ, I'm the guy now. I got to kind of be spreading these seeds and not sending the wrong signals. So are you doing that with your family now? Kind of how without even probably knowing it.
Well, because I know how much it benefited me.
Yeah, it's incredible after all this time. Yeah,
put me on a job site and try to get one over on me. Like, I know what I'm looking at. I might not know the terms. I might not know, some specifics, but I was there with him.
Yeah.
And now we bring our kids. Like, we haven't purchased a property. They've been on showings with us. Like, they're there for everything.
But even to your point, you don't know what you're there for. Maybe you don't know but you're watching how people move. You're watching how people interact. Yeah. You're watching fights. You're watching a clean job site, a dirty job site. So you're seeing all of it, right? Yes. And that's real world experience. It's crazy because I would take my young ones to my flips, my rentals.
You have
and my
to.
Wife is like,
you were doing them
what
such
the hell
a
are you
disservice.
doing this for? Why are you taking them to this area?
You have to.
I'm like, well, one, I want to see if they fit in the tub. I don't know.
Have you ever met kids that don't know what their parents do?
Plenty. Yeah. Plenty of them.
Doesn't that just burn you?
Yeah. I know a lot of them growing up to this day. Like, man, they were making $80,000 a year. They're so rich.
Yeah.
What do they do? And it's like, oh, I don't know.
The other thing that your dad did,
and they still don't know.
The other thing your dad did too, which was always cool to see, was like you were on dirt bikes and 4-wheelers and motorcycles. I remember one time, like, your dad was like, "Don't show Loreta that bike. Like, she's gonna ride it on you." And I'm like, "That's fine. Loretta can ride whatever she wants. Like, anything I own, she can fucking take." He's like, "No, you don't want her riding that." I'm like, "All right," but she knows how to ride stuff, and like he exposed you to that kind of shit. Like, he didn't expose you to stuff like
he didn't treat us like boys and girls. We were all boys, and it's so funny. Whenever we even brought an animal home, they were all boys.
Yeah,
if it was a girl.
Yeah.
No, he did that very specifically because he didn't want us to have fear. And I think about my mom in these cases where she just had to watch her daughters, run off on, dirt bikes and, street bikes. And we were all just like, bye, Mom.
Yeah, just what she signed up for. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Because now I'm like watching my kids do it and I'm like, gosh, this is hard.
There was one time I was sitting there talking to your brother right at the shop, and I'm sitting, and he's telling me about this new motorcycle that he picked up. He's like, "Yeah, I got this bike, this and that," and we're talking, and then he's like, "In fact, there it is right now," and your dad's flying by on it. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Oh my God.
And your dad just zoom it past. I'm like,
God, I've ruined so many things for my brother. Oh, he's so generous. My first, experiences on a street bike were on his, and I just wanted to ride. So like I had his dirt bike that I took over, and I would just ride the property. Those trails were fresh. I would come home from school, take my uniform off, and I was on my dirt bike. That was just my life. I loved it. But then I got to the point where nobody else is home. I'm bored. I want to ride. So I went in the garage, and he had gotten this Honda 1800, and it was a car. It was so heavy. But I'm like, I can put it in first gear and go. So I showed up at my dad's shop, and I was like 15. We're probably going to have to edit this out. I'm going to go to jail. And my dad looks over, and he was like, "Going for a ride?" And my brother's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, let's just go for a ride. Like, it's such a nice day. So my dad's like, "All right, get on the back." So then I'm riding in the back of my dad, and I'm like, well, this isn't fun. I don't want to ride on the back. So he brings it home. Next day, I'm like, I'm going to do it again. I opened the garage, and he put a car in front of the bikes so that I couldn't take it out. So I figured out I'd put the car in neutral.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he collects cars, so he had one of his cars there. I put it in neutral, pushed it out of the garage, took the bike out, pushed the car back in by myself, put the garage down, go pick them up. How did you get this bike out? Is the car okay?
Oh my God. 15 years old, pushing cars in
Okay,
1800s.
when
At
you-
that
when-
point, I
amazing.
think they just realized that, like, she's unhinged.
She's out of the
Yeah.
cage. Yeah, yeah.
when
She can't be saved now. Don't
when
worry
you,
about
when
her.
you treat little girls, right? Like not little girls.
I love it.
And you treat them equally as you do your sons. Then
No, but
you
my
can't be
brother, poor guy,
surprised-
he's like, I don't even want the bike anymore.
You-
It's ruined.
But
Like,
you can't be surprised when you have these like fierce little women walking around. You know. You just,
yeah, so for my 18th birthday, that's what he got me. He got me a Honda Shadow 750. I still have it. I still drive it.
Damn, so you can ride. What about your kids? You got them riding too,
Yes.
or no? What?
Yeah, so
How,
they
how
have
old are the
quads.
kids?
My son's in 7th grade. He's 12.
Oh, wow.
And my daughter's in 5th grade. She's 10.
This episode is sponsored by LK Miller. LK Miller has proudly been serving the greater Philadelphia area's commercial construction needs since 1990. As a commercial general contractor, whether it's office, medical, industrial, retail, or beyond, LK Miller has been building it for 3+ decades. To learn more, call President Jason Scholl at 484-213-8793 or email him at jason.scholl, SCHOLL, at lkmiller.net. Check out their website, www.lkmillerinc.com, and follow them on Instagram at lkmcommercial. I had
Your kids know how to ride?
Yeah, I had my son. Not the girls yet, but they're going to start. I had my son up behind your dad's property, riding around. And
He's a
behind
rider
Franco's.
too, isn't he?
Yeah, Danny rides.
He's
dirt
got his
bikes
bike
and
too.
stuff.
I'm
And,
the odd man out here. I haven't rode a bike in probably 20 years.
Really?
I probably wouldn't even know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, like I called your brother one day. I'm like, hey, I got this little 100 for Jack, and I'm riding around on a 125, just cruising around with him, teaching him to ride. Can I take it back on your property? He's like, yeah, man, go ahead. You know what to do. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So it's like, because he grew up doing that stuff. I grew up doing it. So I grew up riding back there sometimes, and so it's like it's good to like be able to like pass that on. And the girls keep asking now, like, oh, when can we start riding? So
Well,
my
come
one's
get
a little,
the quads.
my one's a little wild though. She's fucking.
Well, no,
nuts.
there's controller. You can control the speed. So,
really?
yeah, we're getting rid of all of them because
Really?
now they grew out of them.
I
So
might
come
have
and
to
get
buy. I
them.
might have to buy one of the little ones off you.
So then it's not all just business, real estate. You guys also have a lot of fun, do a lot of real world
All right,
experience.
so
I mean, that's crazy.
like
I know
life
plenty of
lesson
people
number
that,
one.
yeah.
If you're going to work that hard at something, you have to have just as much
I love
motivation to
it.
do it.
Yes.
So, being afforded the opportunity of like being the child of a school teacher, he had summers off. So he would take us back to the motherland, and we spent our summers in Italy.
Wow.
So that was part of, our lives that, just cut and run. We would go back to where it all started and the life lessons that came from that. Now we're bringing our kids there and spending our time in the house where he was born.
That's amazing. Really? Dude, that's pretty dope.
And it's cool too because it's not a like bustling city. It's a very rural part of Italy.
I can't say that word, but yes.
Yeah, it's
Really?
very rural.
Say that a few times.
Rural, yeah. But
I
it's
can't say it. That
It's
you
like
say
farm.
that.
It's like
I
don't
farmland. and
say
stuff.
it either.
It's farmland and stuff. And the way your brother was describing to me is like the plots of land next to them and all. Like those same families have owned them for generations.
Yes.
And like he was explaining it all to me, and he was like, "Hey, you got to come over
It's
there."
its own form of generational wealth.
It's not like where I lived in Italy, where it was a city, So
Where were you based?
Vicenza. I was there for like a year and a half, I think, based out of Vicenza.
I remember you came home, you were speaking Italian.
Yeah. I used to speak to your dad. I used to speak.
Oh, that's
to
He
your,
came
impressive,
home and he's
dude.
like, "Hey, bella ragazza." I was like,
What the hell just happened here?
Where did you go? You just vanished.
Yeah.
I used to speak.
That's
to
why
you,
he dropped out of high school.
I used to speak to your family in it, and then it was just like, then I would speak it a little bit to your dad, and then it's just like you stop and like I don't know any of it anymore. Like it's like out of me. But you guys still speak it all the time, right?
Yes. The kids are doing Duolingo, and we're trying to just keep it going. Because, it wasn't all so, seamless, the transition from growing up, first generation here. We had our not struggles, but we wanted to be like the American kids.
Oh, so your dad was first generation.
I am.
Oh, really?
He's born and raised there.
Okay,
so he
okay,
came
okay.
here as a teen. My mom came here.
He didn't know English. My dad told me when he came here, he like didn't know English, and they ought to like teach him English.
Yeah.
And he came for work, or just
It was just he had an uncle that was born here out of, the whole family, and he was able to get the rest of the brothers
Oh,
here.
wow. That's
so
interesting.
One family at a time. So when it was my father's parents' turn to come here and bring his siblings, they stayed with the brother. Like, it was kind of, you don't hear about these stories so much anymore. I think now the closest thing would be in the Spanish communities that have migrated here. But the migrations that took place in the 60s like that, they were fortunate enough to have one sibling born here. So my great-grandparents came here, had one child here. He was able to use that paperwork eventually to come back as a U.S. citizen and sponsor his siblings to come over. So that's how my dad got here. My mom came to New York, but my dad settled in Manayunk. West Manayunk at the time was Belmont Hills. So that's how, our people got here. But we have just as much family still there than we do here.
That's really incredible. So now it makes a lot more sense, right? Obviously, the family unit plays an extremely important role on how you guys operate your business and things like that, and hang on to the real estate. So like, getting here was just a challenge for the family in general. So
and you only have each other.
Yeah.
And they're all coming there from there with a trade. So if my dad did buy a property, who was going to help him with it? He had his uncles, his cousins, and we have pictures of these job sites where it's just one long table and it's just family that helped direct these properties. Wow. And it's funny now because we do jobs and it's like, cuz am I going to call now?
Yeah.
To, come help us do anything. It's like trying to call people when you move.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. The pizza and beer trick don't work.
Was Franca born in Italy too, or was she born here?
She was the only one born here.
Okay.
Yeah. She was, I don't want to say an afterthought.
Yeah,
she's
she
the
was,
greatest.
Yeah, she was very, very years later after your dad, and it's just your dad's almost like a father figure to her.
Well, she was a toddler at his wedding, so very much. He walked her down the aisle.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So close.
I love her. She's the best.
Yeah. So she was raised, so close with us. Like, her children to me are more than siblings, than cousins.
So now, as you guys kind of like, I love hearing these stories, right? Because I went to a Catholic school where it was kind of like block by block in Manayunk, obviously, where it was more like those first and second generation families that came here. And that's when our neighborhood was bustling with all corner shops and auto shops and things like that. You said, most people don't know Belmont Hills was like that West Manayunk section. They actually had a boxing ring back there, like way back in the day on that side. So it's like really cool stories like that you say, like,
some people still call it West Manayunk.
Yeah, and then you know what? You drive by a lot of the businesses, and your family's business is driven by millions of times, and it's like, well, how the hell do people have that still? Like, that's a dinosaur, right? Like, how do they acquire that lot? How do they acquire all that equipment? How do they acquire the bricks? And one, obviously, it's timing and ambition back in the day, the cost of entry. Yeah. But like, keeping that through 50, 60, 70 years is insane, right?
Yeah,
like,
so Dr. Rouse, for example, was erected in the 70s, and, now my brother is taking over, but he's had to apply his upgrades, his envision, his whole vision has changed to where this business is going to go. So, you take it to a certain point, and then hopefully you leave it in the right hands.
And now I'd imagine, at the same time, being approached daily by investors, buyers, somebody that wants the land, somebody wants the business. Does that happen down there often? I mean, because they're building everywhere. Right
I'm
now.
sure it has for him, but
for him,
I don't know if that's,
because that whole area is.
I would love.
It would be interesting
to hear in on that phone call of like someone cold calling your dad.
That's what I can imagine. A big F off.
It would be fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
He loves hearing the offer.
Hilarious.
To hear the offer, take the offer, and throw it right back at him, huh? That's good. At least
but
take the temperature.
what was good about him is he would come home and talk about those conversations and say, well, why would I do that? Why would it behoove me to do that? So
well, think
he
about
would turn that conversation into a lesson at the dinner table.
A lesson. Yeah. He sounds like the quintessential teacher, obviously, which, it's interesting because if a lot of these guys that I work with and talk to don't take over their family's business. They don't want any parts of it. They say, hey, I don't want it. Let's just sell it. Let's just chop it up, which I always think is a mistake, right? Like, give it a try first. But I guess the problem is you don't want to do a disservice to the person before you, right? But you got to go for it,
that's
right?
so much
Like,
is the motivator as like you kind of want to drive your own ship. You have your own ambitions, your own, this and that. But I don't know. Sometimes I see people let family businesses, slip through the cracks and go to other people, and it's sad.
yeah,
Because
very
you
sad.
want so much for them to pick up where the parents left off, and
There's not many of them left, especially where we've came from, right? Like 20 years ago, I feel like that's all the names were, like guys you went to school with and guys that own businesses or helped out in the area. There's just not that many left, right? Like of generational families, like, hey, they're still in that business. Like,
Exactly,
your
yeah.
Marciano families and things like that we all know of,
Yeah,
right?
and love.
And the Bobs and all that stuff. So,
But your dad had your brother, with a broom in his hand, and then every tool in that shop in his hand.
which
and
you're
learned
big
how
on,
to-
you're huge on,
Learned
right?
how to do everything, and then slowly just was give him more reins and more reins and more reins and more reins, and then one day he just doesn't come in anymore. He obviously pops in there all the time, but he's that's now it's just Franco's place.
Yeah.
He's
Dr.
running the show.
Franco's.
And I
Yeah.
guess
I'm
that's
waiting for the sign to change.
Yeah, right.
But that's the plan, right? I guess that's the whole plan all along. That's
Absolutely.
when Pops
That's
thinks of it,
legacy.
and it's like, that's it. That boom, he got it. He looked at the
Yeah.
playbook,
That shit
and
wasn't.
he went with it.
That shit wasn't handed to him though.
No.
No, and I'm not saying by any stretch.
Your
no.
dad made him fucking work
Yeah.
and work.
The level of
and work.
sacrifice, and that's what makes you appreciate it. So, we grew up not only just worshiping my dad and watching those sacrifices day to day happen to make those summers in Italy possible, to make those dirt bikes and every other luxury we were afforded happen. The immense amount of respect that goes along with, his role in our family, but then trickled down to my brother, because my brother, was in high school. That was his world. And, then he was, running things, and how do you deny acknowledging that and what my brother did for our family?
Sure.
He's
high
a
school guys
second-
don't do that, right? I'm telling you,
God.
I know I sure shit would have did
His
that in high
friends
school.
were out,
they're out partying, they're at the
painting the
keg
town
party.
red, and where was
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
brother? He was, right next to my dad, and the immense amount of respect that we have for my brother to take that on for our family and keep it going. I mean, my God, I see my brother every morning. We're lucky enough for our kids to go to school together, and it's kind of like clank coffee cups in the morning, have a good day, and I
go
know
about your business. That's
exactly
amazing. Yeah.
what he's going to go do that day, and I know in somewhere in the universe I'm benefiting still from that, because it's just the way we were raised.
Yeah.
I thank
your
him
dad
every
worked
day.
so many hours. He'd come home for dinner and then go right back to the auto body shop and work for how long?
If he had
years
something to
and
finish
years
for
and
the
years,
next
right?
day, or a job he had to prep,
and saved all that money and bought property and bought property and bought property and sacrificed things that he
That's
wanted
why
to
I
do.
didn't know if I was going to be a good candidate to introduce that type of lifestyle into our family. Ramon had property when I married him. He had a duplex. And he sold that so that we could buy our first property together on Fountain Street. That's why I was like, I love the tile in the bathroom.
Yeah, it
because,
takes you back. It's
oh
beautiful
man,
in there.
that tile in Fountain Street was hot pink,
Hot pink.
green, and blue,
Oh.
and that was our first job site.
I just saw that house just resold last year, I think.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see it went up again. But yeah, selling that house for us was how our real estate journey started.
And then your husband came from a different country. He came from Colombia.
But in the same way, his family was sponsored by somebody that had come before him. So he's from Colombia, and he's been here, 25 years. So he's not in the newer wave of, migrating peoples, but he's been here quite a long time.
He came when Escobar was just wreaking havoc on his country.
Exactly, yeah.
Now it's a completely different country. Now it's
Now
I'm
it's
hearing from so
where
many
we
people
love to go for
Go to
vacation
vacation.
and-
And we were talking about this at one of the school events.
Yeah.
You got to come with us to
I heard
Colombia.
it. I heard it's incredible.
Just
yeah.
come. You would never
heard it's
believe
awesome.
it. We
So
love
he
it.
came here. Did he come here to kind of get away from that, or did he come here with that tunnel vision of, hey, let's grab some property, let's work, let's kind of
No, it was his mom driving the bus as a single mother, to get him out of, that
It was dangerous as shit. back then.
dangerous
This
area.
is, I mean, it's terrible, but it's
Like, he
fascinating.
came
really.
here when like the DA was hunting Escobar to try to kill him.
Oh, holy crap.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because the stories that he tells, it sounds like a movie. Like
It really does. I mean, I'm
was a
sitting
movie.
here
I mean,
like,
there's
well,
movies
that's a
made-
real life
There's
movie.
movies
Yeah.
made about it.
But
like,
imagine
Narcos
like
is
me
made about
being 17 years old. I'm meeting this guy that has come here from this country, wants to start, an empire for himself, and do this and do that. And I'm like, that sounds like my dad.
that. And he's a man that
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say, yeah.
It was like,
he's
obviously.
a man that does not run from hard work either.
No.
Like, he runs right at it.
I'm so fortunate that every crazy idea I've ever had, he's like, all right, we'll get it done. Like,
So you gravitated. He sounds exactly probably like your old man. Yeah.
yeah, he has all the best stuff from my dad. Like, they get along great, which is super helpful.
But he had
he
that
stopped calling him my boyfriend like 10 years ago, maybe.
So he came.
He doesn't yell though like your dad used to.
My
Yeah,
husband would never.
doesn't
do
yell.
That.
He doesn't raise
No.
his voice.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have to. No.
So with the business, and he understood that, hey, like with the duplex or the Fountain Street property, it's like, hey, you got to grab real estate, obviously, too. He had that same vision and then intertwined with the business. So obviously you said one hand takes care of the other. And we know that in business, obviously you get the bricks and run a business as well. How do the two work? How do you guys juggle it? I mean, with the it sounds like you have kind of your schedule and set up
Well, so I guess this is where I could kind of lend the female perspective of this industry in with it, because your wives will tell you that, I'm at home making sure the groceries are bought, the meals are made, the doctor's appointments are happening, the kids are getting shuttled wherever they can.
Laundry's done, lunches are packed. All
Yeah,
that
but
shit.
I'm also trying to manage properties, and this just, we had
Sounds
to
familiar.
figure out a way to make this work together, because we still have Paw Prints 5 days a week that needs to function and function well, because other people now depend on it for their livelihood. And then we have these properties that need to get finished, have to get rented, and everything else that goes along with it. So it's never just like, oh, it's rehabbed, tenants are in, and we're done. We'll see you at the first of the month.
sounds like
that's-
you got a lot of free time on your hands. But no, I mean, people.
It's a joke. Like, you just sit there and wait for the next ball to drop and, the next disaster you have to go fix. And, we're constantly running in different directions. So having a good marriage, good communication, we're all doing all of the things at the end of the day to get the job done. So, like, our roles intermingle constantly.
Who's the organized one? Are you both organized, or is it just you, or is it a kind of a good
in
mix?
our own ways?
Yeah,
We have our own things.
We're
So,
kind
like,
of the same. Yeah.
over the last couple years, I've been like, I talked to the bank, I found a property, I bought it, and can you just go figure out what needs to be done? And I kind of just like walk away, and he's like,
I do this. Yeah, I do a lot of the same. Yeah.
what? Can you come look at me and tell me what you were thinking? Like, he's been on a few properties that I've just brought him to that day of signing.
Yeah.
That I've said, like, this is what I think, this is why I'm buying it. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, let's go for it. Like, at that point,
and
what's
even
he
if
going
you
to
say
do?
no, the deal's going to be done.
Yeah.
Anyway. No, that's great, because it sounds a lot like what I do. It sounds like a lot what Nick does. I think Nick and Jen are obviously more, locked in with each other because they work in the same business. But I do the same thing. Anytime an opportunity comes up in business, real estate, grab it. And I say, Eric, time was of the essence. I did it. I bought it, but can you help me set up this? And she will, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's all about teamwork, peace at home. That's what I do for work on my day-to-day job, but I don't like doing it for my investments, right? So it's like, that's what and it teaches her to handle the books, right? So she's calling all of our vendors and, she's making sure everything's done, the budget's done correctly. So I feel like, hey, I'm actually kind of helping her out a little bit. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know that we can help each other enough in the situations that we've put ourselves in, but we're getting it done. That's
So like you had touched on it earlier where you said if somebody asked you like, should I get into this? And you're like, no. And me and Jen literally just had this conversation last week where we would kind of say the same thing, but because it's not easy on a relationship. It's not easy on a marriage. It's not easy with having kids and doing all this stuff because like you said, it doesn't just stop at as soon as you buy it and as soon as you get a tenant in there. and it doesn't stop at 5 p.m. like jobs do. It's 24 hours. It's all the time, and it's a whole new level of stresses, and it's a whole other thing onto your marriage. And you know, when Jen was saying it, she's like, it's just funny that you brought this up. We had literally just had this conversation, and she's like, you know, like I don't really recommend it for anybody to get in it with their spouse. She's like, but she's like, we've been in it so long now. She's like, now like we've encountered every problem, and now it's like we just know how each other's going to act, and there's no fights anymore. There's no disagreements because we just kind of we've reached a point now where it's just fluid. You know what I mean? So it's like she knows how I'm going to react.
Did
I know
a
how
fight
she's
ever
going to
get
react.
you anywhere though?
No,
It's like
it
you
does.
just
It
get
doesn't.
wise
It
after
just
a
wastes
while.
really
the time
doesn't.
out there.
Like, yeah.
Nothing's going to get accomplished. There's two different philosophies there. But you know, to your point, Jen helped you push you out of your comfort zone into
100%.
the industry, right? So that's why it worked for you two. She was the one that kind of kicked your ass and said, "Go do it, dude." Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and the other thing too is like I'll like you said, you just like, hey, we're buying a property, and like she's like, oh really? Are you gonna fucking tell me? Okay, cool. And like you do with Ramon, and I remember walking through a property with you and Ramon, and I'm like, what do you think, bud? And he's like, it doesn't matter what the fuck I think. He was like, look, she already bought it in her fucking head, dude. Like this is happening. Like you know, I don't have a fucking say here right now. You know, he was like, so you think I'm gonna tell her no? You know what I mean? Like it just like he knew. Like he was like the look on her face, like dude, she's buying this. Like okay. You know what I mean? Like that's just how
And
it
I'm
goes.
smiling right now because you're 100% right. But like just knowing that that's our dynamic, like who can beat that? You
yeah,
can't
it's
beat
cool,
that with
right?
this
Because
stuff,
you're
like-
not sitting there arguing. You're not sweating the small stuff.
No.
And we know in this business, as we try to teach everybody on the show, it's like you just got to make the decision and right, like have the contingency plan in place. If it falls flat, you can get rid of it, right? There's scenarios. It's not like we just buy it and hope it all works out. There's obviously we run through all the downfalls of it, the money part of it. But juggling it all is the impressive part of it, right? Because you came in here super cool, like, and if I had that much stuff going on, like, I'd be kind of bugging a little bit, right? Like,
Well, this was like a vacation.
yeah,
for
I
me
know. I was
today.
going to say
like,
thank you for coming in and
Yeah, I
taking
love
an
it.
hour to decompress. It's therapy session. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how do you manage it like for the moms out there? Like, it's like, God, like the workload that you have already, like running a house and you know running all the kids and doing stuff like to put all this other like you have businesses and then you have the real estate and all stuff like sometimes like people don't realize how much is on a woman's plate, like on a mom's plate. It's
You
fucking
don't.
crazy.
And I want to come into the scene like, you know, we're Chip and Joanna, and, you know, I'm just going to put like the beautiful finishing touches on everything. And that's not the reality at all. It has to be a team effort. You never see Joanna on the show, you know, getting dirty and, you know, helping clean out a property or, you know, loading the truck up or, you know, how many times, you know, you find me at Lowe's or Home Depot, you know, getting what he
Yeah.
might need while he's on the job.
Sure.
You just have to get it done. You can't hold grudges. You can't let that stuff trickle in. And we plan date nights, you know, we have our own ways of, you know, compartmentalizing all these separate things. When we come home, we're not talking about the grooming salon. We're keeping it, whatever happens in the house, about the family, you know. We really try to compartmentalize and, you know, not have it all bleed in. Or else you're just not going to make it because your kids are going to suffer. Everybody's going to suffer. You have to keep something secret.
Well, unless you said it to your point, like your dad, the way he conveyed that message was different, right? Not everybody has that gift where they can make it kind of a scenario-based thing or a thought process
and
thing.
you evolve and you grow. I come home and I ask my kids now, like, how was your day? I'm
Yeah,
not sure that
yeah.
was asked around our kitchen tables so much growing up.
Exactly,
You know, it
right?
was more like, how was your parents' day? And then you just listen. But, you know, we're trying to do things a little bit better, a little bit different. But, you know.
I asked the girls and Jack, but more so the girls because they're you know they're younger, and I asked instead of saying like how was your day, because they're just like, and you're like what'd you do today? I don't know.
Nothing.
So me and Jen we started this a few years ago. We asked them what was your favorite part about today. Mm-hmm. So it gives them a specific thing to think about, and then they talk about it, and like that I've found to be pretty cool and rewarding and we do it all the time. Like I'll be doing something and in the other room or something, and then I'll hear Jen with one of the girls, and she'll ask. You know what I mean? And she doesn't even know that I had already asked and stuff like that. But it's like now they're engaged with us and they're telling us. And then now, they'll ask me sometimes, like, "What was your favorite part of the day?" And I'm like, I don't fucking even know how to answer this. Like the first time they asked me, I'm like,
get in the car and say, "Mama, how was your day?" And I'm like, "Thank you."
I know. Yeah. Right. I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that. But that was awfully nice of you. It's happened to me a couple of times. It's caught me off guard. I was like, I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. But
no, now I'm gonna pick them up in these clothes, and they're like, "You didn't go to work today," because I usually show up covered in hair. And
say we were doing some celebrity stuff.
Well, Jen's always in workout clothes, right? What does she call it? Athleisure wear, right? Because she's always fucking working out. And whenever she has on like jeans or like different clothing, we're always like, where are you going? And like the girls will ask her like, what were you doing today? Like, where'd you go? Because they see that she doesn't have workout clothes on.
Of course. I'm
which
always
is funny.
covered in cat hair when the kids see me.
Now that business pretty much is pretty self-reliant at this point. Like it just kind of that ball is just rolling at all times, right?
That was just one of those situations where we asked the community, because we had a hair salon at the time. That's where I met your wife. Mm-hmm. My gosh, how many? 17 years. I knew your wife before you did.
Yeah.
But we had a hair salon, and neighborhood needed it at the time. Middle of a recession, we opened that business. And, the building became available. It was a tanning salon.
Yep.
So we talking to people, what does the neighborhood need? What does the neighborhood need? And we knew we wanted to be business owners, and we were willing to open any business.
And your dad had owned that building for a long time.
So we were like, what could go? What would be like smart in here? So people were like, we don't have a dog groomer in Roxborough. And I'm
Is
like,
that right? There was
we have a hair salon. Like, how we could bridge this easily. Sure. So out of nowhere,
there's a million hair salons.
I was going to say there was one hair salon on every corner.
Yeah, but Ramon had a different vision how he wanted this one. I totally took over and ruined the vision, and that's why probably that's not in business anymore. But the product of that was now we have this dog grooming business, and those stalls where they had the tanning beds, we put tubs. We had self-service. We tried to have all the things that the neighborhood didn't have at the time. I trained on the job, hired groomers, learned from them.
Oh, so no experience, obviously, beforehand. It was you were doing the salon.
She just loved animals.
I love animals, and I knew money in, money out. You just got to keep more than you spend to make a business run in my head, and I figured it out.
You make it sound very easy. That's why I ask. It's like you went from people to dogs, and then you just say, hey, whatever.
Yeah, I learned on the job, and
you've had employees there for a long time too.
Yeah, so now you get smart after having a couple businesses, and you realize like when you have good employees and they become like family, do whatever you can to keep the family together and make it work. And our clientele, when you have loyalty in a neighborhood like ours,
and people love you,
but we love them back.
Yeah, it's great.
Animals pass, they get another one, and you have a relationship established, and we're taking care of, like I tell everybody it's like almost like a preschool, daycare, like with real children. Like these are people's real kids.
Oh yeah, people treat pets like
we
kids
assume
nowadays.
The responsibility of that.
I didn't even think of it from
seriously.
that standpoint. I'm thinking about it's another business opportunity, but no, I mean it's
Yeah, I think at first I
it's
saw it in
deal.
a different light, but after meeting people that come in and, they're alone and their kids have left and they're empty nesters and all they have is an animal to get them out of bed every day, and that's like their world, you take it a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
So,
and you guys always had animals growing up,
mm-hmm.
and then, your dad's backyard was basically a forest, so like there was deer and everything. I remember that one dog he had. I was always scared that thing was going to bite the shit out of me, but Lupo, like I would throw him rocks.
Yeah.
A big ass German Shepherd, I would throw rock, and he would go get the rock and bring it back to me, and I'm like, this motherfucker's just gonna bite me one day. And then like your dad would always be like, here, go here and pick this up on my property, and he'd be like, Lupo's out, and I'm like, man, I'm not fucking going there. Lupo's gonna fucking tear my ass apart.
You're lucky he didn't.
And he'd be like, just grab a rock and throw it to him and call his name. I'm like, oh my god, I'd be so nervous to go there. I was always scared that dog was gonna bite the shit out of me.
He bit a couple people.
Oh, I know. I know.
So what's next for your business? Because and now I'm afraid to answer this question because I don't know if you have a full-on plan or if you just kind of go with the flow.
I just turned 40, so for me, there's always what's next.
Welcome to the club. Now that we'll age ourselves.
I will forever say I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
So there's always a second act and a third act, that I have waiting in the wings. But for right now,
That's what keeps you looking young.
we were
That's it, man.
able
New chapters.
to invest in another property where we want to move the business to, still in Roxborough, but just in order to expand the business and have it function better.
That's the one up closer to where I live?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's important
it's
to you,
under-
obviously, to stay in the Roxborough area. It's obviously made
That's
you got.
where we've made all of our investments with the exception of one. But, our investments are predicated on, a few things. Will it carry? Is it, you have to figure out, like, when you're going into this investment thing. This is why I tell people, like, I want to, like, kind of backtrack on this point that I was trying to make earlier. Like, when I tell people not to get into this on just like a whim, you have to be very intentional about how you're going to approach this business if you want it to be a business. So are you doing this through existing wealth, or are you borrowing from the bank? Because there's not enough money that you can have to, plan for all the what ifs and, the things that could happen with this business. So if you are not prepared to go into this and have something break and have a check ready to fix that problem, then this is probably not the business for you.
Yeah.
You can't have enough contingencies in place. So whenever I priced out our properties and, mortgage rates and things like that, like I planned for, if we're on a variable rate and I need to pay this mortgage with this rental income coming in, I planned that if this rate goes 5 points above, can my rent still carry it?
Sure.
So at the time when I bought, this property, maybe we were at 7%, but what if it goes to 14%? Can that property still carry? So I'm very motivated on making the numbers work before.
So you'll do you like most of us will do a pro forma beforehand. You'll look at your moderate income, your when the market's crushing it, and then when you're in a bad spot.
Exactly.
Sure.
And are we still carrying, and is this smart for us? So like right now in the season of where we're at and where we're buying, like I'm not looking at those big ticket items. I'm looking at what we can carry. So, ask me in 10 years, where that's taken us. But right now we're just taking on what we can, afford and what works and makes sense for our family.
And you're not looking for you're not really looking for like a large monthly gain from each one. You're looking at the long term play.
I'm not looking for any gains.
If they come, they're
right now.
If they come, that's
my gains are
benefit.
coming from my bread and butter at Paw Prints. This is my forever and ever.
So that's your long game.
Long game.
Okay.
Like I'm not investing in Bitcoin and all the other things that people probably do. I have no idea about that stuff.
Sure.
I know what was taught to me at a very young age. Yeah. Stay in your lane. You invest, and it's going to go up.
Yeah.
Real estate is very dependable and reliable in that sense. So, I can only hope for the best, 30 years down the road. And
you're seeing evidence of it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I remember growing up before those mortgages were paid off, and then when my parents looked like they put their shoulders down a little bit,
sure.
As we got older.
Your dad would come home like, "Hey, I bought another one." Your mom's probably like, "What the fuck?"
He, as up to a couple years ago, he was still doing that. Like,
yeah.
It's it's nice to see now that you can sit back and laugh about it and reminisce about it. But
I'm sure there was some heated arguments.
Yeah, but there's I'm sure stuff that went unspoken. Like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this work? Like
you appreciate it more now, seeing what they sacrificed.
Gosh, like, and my kids especially. Like, I try to tell them like, you like travel soccer, you like going to Virginia and upstate, and we were able to take our son to Spain to play soccer. He was just invited to England. Like, that's not free.
No.
Like, you have to work so hard to do the things of today. We would have never asked our parents that 20 years ago when we were little.
No.
That didn't exist.
That would have been hysterical too.
We're like, can I have a starter jacket? And
that's
that
what it
to us
was.
was like,
your son's super passionate about football though. Like he's super.
At this
super
point,
passionate.
that could change next
Sure,
year. We're not deluded, but you really have to plan for the contingencies and like
travel sports is like a double-edged sword. It's like you see the kids having such a good time, but you're like, there's a lot of times you're like, I am not fucking enjoying this.
Did you think I ever thought I would be that parent? I used to make fun of parents that are doing what I'm doing now.
Well, I travel to Spain to go watch some
Yeah,
soccer. I
yeah,
mean,
well,
you can sign me up. I'll do that.
Usually it's the places you don't even want to go, though. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I've been to every butt crack of Pennsylvania.
Ah,
Okay,
yeah,
wherever
yeah, I'm
there's
sure.
a field, we
Yeah.
have played on it.
Yeah.
And now his territory is like from New York to Virginia, so like we're really, but I pick him up from school and we have to take him to Thorndale from here. So we lose 3 to 4 hours a day just on soccer. Like imagine that.
No.
That's like time not accounted for. You're not being paid for that. So it's like that has to come from somewhere.
And in our business, that if you're not organized, if you don't have that right partnership, that can create a shit ton of animosity or anxiety in everything you do, right? Because some people just simply can't even, they don't have the time management or time blocking skills to take a 3-hour kind of leave from work, which again, ultimately drives you crazy and burns you out regardless. So that's why I think it's so interesting that you're able to juggle all this stuff.
But it's only temporary though. It's, because
everything is.
They're only relying on you to do that stuff for so long.
But it's on to the next one. I mean, there's always going to be something next, right? So it kind of just moves.
You don't have a ton of time with them. Like when you really sit back and think about it, you don't have a ton of time with them.
But if you do it right, like where are you going to find me on a Friday night? I'm still going to be at my parents' house because that's just... Like, I feel like they did it the right way. We still all want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like...
You've always been like daddy's girl.
Well, I mean, look,
I
it sounds
his
great.
favorite.
And I mean, as it relates to real estate, like things like that matter, right? Like you have so many businesses throughout the neighborhood and, you buildings you guys have throughout the neighborhood. Baker Street does everything within the neighborhood. That keeps the values high, right? That keeps everything like that family unit in play, right? Not everybody is running from Roxborough like, it's perceived sometimes. I'm in Conchi, so don't kill me. I did 35 years in the neighborhood. But really, that stuff is important because when businesses shut down, things move out. Your real estate can go to shit with it, right?
It's sad seeing
those
change is not an easy pill to swallow.
and it's not
the
fun.
old businesses that have been there, leaving. It's sad.
The old
I'm just going to be
pharmacies on
moving
Ridge.
a couple blocks, and I know that that's going to create a significant impact.
Sure,
I know
right?
that,
Because
yeah.
those small little changes matter to some
But
people, right?
But the positive is
Progression
It
as
may
well.
be better. It may be better for people to park and get in with their dogs. So some of the elderly people might bitch that they might have to drive 5 or 6 more blocks, but it's going to be easier for them to get out of their car with their animal.
Well, tell us where it's going, because as we wrap up the
If
show,
you
we
want
want to know where, obviously, to send people to Paw Prints. We want to hear more about your real estate adventures, and I know there'll be a new business coming up, so we'll stay tuned for that. But tell us where we can find the new shop and when it plans to open.
So hopefully we'll be opening in latest spring of 2025, and we will be at the corner of Ridge and Parker Avenue. So we will be...
So not too far away,
No.
and more
It's like
accept-
the third or fourth store in from the corner.
Now, is the old location, are you moving on from that location too, or are you going
No,
to
we
keep...
still own the building,
Okay.
and hopefully there'll be another savvy entrepreneur that's going to want to get in there and grace our community with another business. I
Yeah.
mean, there's plenty of opportunity, but again, people just have to take those opportunities and see that this neighborhood is very rich in many different ways and can take another business.
Wow,
I wish there would be more. I wish there was some more restaurateurs would come in.
So
Such
expensive.
a missing opportunity.
It's expensive, but I mean, look...
What part in your mind's expensive?
Well, see, I like this question. Now, I mean, to me, I worked in that industry. So I started at 14 in the hospitality industry. So it's more, I have actually seen it just from the side of the burnout, the stress, the fights, the partnerships that dissolve from it. The
At
relation.
what level? At a corporate
rents.
level, or
Well, no,
like
not
a
more
mom
at a
and
corporate,
pop
like
shop?
a more mom and pop shop, right? Like, so we, the Main Street, the birth of Main Street, and saw those restaurants come in, come out. And now knowing a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs themselves, business owners and restaurant owners, bar owners, it's a difficult job. You said sacrifice multiple times in this interview, and it takes a ton of sacrifice, but a ton of focus at the same time, right? Because you can take it at work all day. You come home and there's no peace at home. There's fights at home. One of them's going to break, right? So I like how you pose the question back, because obviously there's a shit ton of startup capital, or you got to get partnerships, and that
And are you
becomes.
saying the rents are high? Like
Rents are insanely.
But if your
high.
product,
I mean,
if your
you look
product
at a
and service is good, the rents really don't matter because people are going to come, right?
Well, it does matter.
It does. It's all connected. Like, so I take a location like we're going to have for rent, in that specific area on the corner of Ridge and Green Lane, for example. Like, what do you need there? You need 20 different types of businesses there. And
absolutely.
you just need somebody to work hard and do it and get it done. It's possible.
Sure.
I mean, and that's where my diluted sense of like anything's possible. Why do you have to fail? Stay consistent, come in with a product. There's SBA loans, there's loans with the RDC, there's grants.
Now we're talking.
There's
See?
so many
That's
things
what we're talking about. Yes.
and avenues and people to help these small businesses, but nobody takes the leap. And people want to spend money and they want to
be there
support,
for a long time too.
And they want to support small business.
Look at your family across the street at the pizza shop, at the
you have
bakery up the
Roxborough
street.
Developmental Corporation. I don't know if it's a deterrent for business owners. Some you'll get different opinions on it.
They're
right?
pretty good with you guys, though, right?
Yeah.
I think
Some
they're an
people
asset. They're not going anywhere.
I totally
Use them
agree.
as an asset. They're there. They're so informed. I was sitting in there the other day. We have a vacant property. And I went to them and I said, like, listen, how can we, fill this with a good business? They're trying to fill leads to us. But they also came to us with an opportunity to put a pop-up shop in there. So like right now, they're getting local artists and artisans in there that are going to, be there from now until Christmas.
Yeah.
That are going to, showcase that the property's available. And that wouldn't have happened without a conversation. And who else was I going to go to lean on for that?
Yeah.
And
so you have guidance and some people, I guess the guys that we hear,
and they
the
said,
sounding
you're
boards.
moving the business. There is a grant available for if you're rehabbing anything outside. Thank you very much. I did not know that. So, you have to lean on these people and,
Plus they have the personnel like cleaning up. They still have the guy like on the golf cart, like riding around cleaning up, picking up all the trash.
That's my guy.
Yeah, see,
that's
there
my
you go.
friend. You got to know people and you got to be
Main Street has a similar thing.
Yeah, you have to know who you're in the community with. You're not just, you can't use business and, these sort of things as like a grab money type situation. Like
They still have the bike cop up there.
Yeah,
Wasn't
Bill.
Wasn't Billy up there on the bike? Yeah.
Be running for mayor. That might be next, Zach.
Yeah, right.
And we grew up with Billy Verica.
Yeah, of course. I know him. I went to school with him.
Yeah.
But amazing. I mean, really, you really care about this stuff, which is awesome. You can tell, obviously, it's ingrained in you for sure because it's just different. There's guys like me that didn't grow up with that kind of thing. It was like, hey, Pop's worked for SEPTA 45 years. This is what he does to pay the bills. You guys figure it out. And look, that worked for me, right? It doesn't work for everybody.
And there's nothing wrong
Yeah,
with
and there's
that.
nothing wrong. There was 4 boys. So it's like, you just better figure it out. And that's kind of the philosophy it was. But I love to hear it from, the kind of family side where it wasn't just business and bickering and arguing. I know there is that stuff.
For sure.
But it's always a teaching moment for you guys. And now for the viewers.
And learn how to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're enjoying it, which is the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Like totally carefree.
Find that balance. Don't overextend yourself. Get involved where it makes sense. And,
Well, look,
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, like our dads are like very close. We grew up similar but different. Where, your mom was like on board, or maybe not so much on board, but like your dad was buying the properties and stuff. My dad wanted to buy the properties and do all that stuff because he was fixing so many properties for other people and stuff. And my mom was like, no. She didn't want to take that chance with having children and all that stuff. And
even though my mom wasn't the driving force of these things, and she went along for the ride, kind of difficult with my dad not to. But you want to talk about the female perspective on a situation like that, and she didn't have the opportunity to graduate from high school, but she managed every single one of those properties. She taught me how to do it.
Oh wow!
I was doing taxes with her in 8th grade. Like,
It's incredible.
She was holding it down, and like my dad would never even start an interview without saying like I couldn't have done it without my wife.
Oh yeah.
Because she had 4 of us to take care of, and she was doing all behind the scenes stuff. So, that they just don't make them like that anymore.
But like your dad and mom were investing, and my dad wanted to, my mom didn't, and she trumped my dad's decision there and didn't, but I saw it, because I was surrounded by other people, always buying properties and stuff. And then I was like, I'm going to fucking invest. And, I remember when I first started, my dad was like, dude, I always wished that I did this. And a lot of his friends did and stuff. Yeah. And he's like, I always wished that I did this. And like, you should do this. And like, don't regret your decisions. Just fucking go, man. And I did. You know, I just fucking, and you know, there's nothing my dad can tell me to either sway my decision or anything. Like, once I make my mind up, it's a wrap, and he fucking knows that.
Listen,
you know
our
that.
kids are going to be the same way because it seems like we have three kind of
Yeah,
similar
I kind of
personalities.
waited for like my dad to like kind of let me loose
Yeah.
because I was always waiting for him. Like, oh, Pa, I saw a for sale sign here. Do you think that makes sense for me? And you know, no, not that one. I'll let you know when I see something.
Yeah.
So I was a college senior. And he overheard me talking to somebody, and they said, "Where do you see yourself?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be a fashion designer." So my dad heard that, and he was like, "She's not leaving me."
Yeah, we got to reroute this course.
So he took me to a building on Ridge, and it was an old shoe store. And he was like, "I'll buy this for you, and you can put a business here, and we'll get the fabric from Italy, and you know, we'll open a store here." And I hadn't even graduated yet, and I was like, "I don't want to do this. I just want to go work for somebody." And he's like, "No, work for yourself. We'll get you some seamstresses." And I, what did I know at that age?
Sure.
Like, I was petrified. So I was like, "No, that I don't want that. I don't want to have that kind of life. And you know, I need to, you know, do this and do that." And you know, I kind of, you know, had some resistance with him on stuff like that. But, you know, fast forward 10 years later and I'm showing him buildings like, now I want to do this. Now I want to do that. And he was like, no, not this one, not that one. I'll let you know when it's time.
Yeah.
So when I finally was like, all right, I put Fountain Street for sale. We're doing this, you know, he's like, all right, I got you. I told you I would help you when the time was right. You know, you're getting there. Let's do it. So like, he really stepped up at that point.
And you said that he told you that he'd never sell property, and he only sold one and he regrets it.
Still regrets it.
That's
and
crazy.
he's like, see if you can get that. See if you can still get that back for it.
That's
All right,
funny.
get to work, man.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
help,
right.
get to
That's
work.
my specialty.
Him and Jen will get to work.
That's
But
my specialty.
Loretta, this was an awesome interview because I knew obviously of you growing up and we've worked together in the past, but the family story behind it is so fascinating, right? Because again, I think you make it kind of look easy, but people don't know the sacrifice, the
If
work.
I make it look easy, it's only because they've afforded me that privilege to make it look easy. But, you know, you can be given, you know, $10. It's up to you to keep it $10 or potentially make it $20.
Make it $20.
So whatever, you know, support you get from, you know, investors or family members or, you know, if it's generational or whatever, like you have to do the rest of the work. That's
the lesson here. Well, look,
Yeah.
I love it. We need to have you back because we need to hear up the new opening and see how it goes from there. But we'll definitely throw up the new address on the content and, you know, we'll go from there. But Loretta,
Thank
awesome
you
to
for
have you.
having me, guys. This
Nick,
was fun.
thanks again. Yeah, it was super fun. And that's it for another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. Thanks, guys.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.